and Jody Keith is on the left. What we believe is just a win and in for both players here.
Right. Jim not dead with a loss, though, yeah, Jody would certainly love to win this matchup.
And Jim starting out here, just no one drop. So if there's a Meddling Mage in the opener on Living End.
There's two Meddling Mages in the opener.
Mages. All right. I was going to ask how Jody deals with them.
Some main deck Beast Withins. He could also get to 5 and cast Horror of the Broken Lands.
Yeah, that's my concern, is that Jim's hand of just Meddling Mage naming Living End, second Meddling Mage also naming Living End. Can Jody win that race?
A second Meddling Mage is a reasonable argument to name a different card, be it Beast Within if you're a little bit slow with the clock, be it Archfiend if near. I guess Archfiend if you're slow with the clock, Beast Within if you're fast.
Sure. Here's Meddling Mage from Jim. I suppose, once you name Beast Within...
That turns off Jody's ability to use it as a surprise blocker.
Well, to ever get rid of Meddling Mage on Living End, now it's just Archfiend plus Cycling is his only way to kill them?
Right.
A bit slow.
No one-drop is an issue, though Jim does at least have a Mantis Rider I've spotted in the hand. He'll be able to turn up the clock here.
And he has named Living End with the first Meddling Mage.
Surprise!
Wow. Wait, Ryan, he has Image. So if you're at the point where I say Meddling Mage on Living End, a Meddling Mage on Beast Within, Phantasmal Image on Meddling Mage naming Archfiend, are we locked now?
You can Demonic Dread away the Phantasmal Image.
Gosh. Oh, boy. Yeah.
And then not cast the spell you cascade into.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Yeah. The odds are very long.
Here's Mantis Rider from Jim Davis. Swings in for 5. Jody to 15.
Just saying. That sentence is such nonsense.
You're like, there's a line. It's not going to happen.
Right.
Jody continuing to cycle away these creatures. If Jim has a 4th land, it is 2 more Meddling Mages this next turn.
Maybe even just Meddling Mage Thalia's Lieutenant.
Well, that's so much less exciting, but it might also just be correct. His hand is 2 images in a Meddling Mage. What if we just Meddling Maged every card in Jody's deck?
This time
just all of them.
I don't know if we need to be naming Horror of the Broken Lands and Monstrous Carabid. Meddling Mage naming Street Wraith.
No, once we Meddling Mage Violent Outburst, then it's done, right? Then we can't get rid of the mages anymore. We've completed the lock.
Demonic Dread.
Demonic Dread.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mage Beast Within, Living End, Demonic Dread, and Archfiend Vifnir. Then they're there. We did it.
I think that's how you do it.
The lock has been completed.
The squeeze. Though combat damage seems to be a more limiting factor on Jody's ability to play the game.
Can we Meddling Mage the attack step?
Well, Jody would want to do that. I don't think Jim is interested.
Meddling Mage Jody's combat damage. Then we're good. Then he has no more outs.
Well, I don't think Jody's going to have an opportunity to attack this game.
Not looking like it. Jim drawing Kite Sail Freebooter here. Doesn't actually have the 4th land, so you can only pick one of these creatures. That should be just fine.
I like casting Meddling Mage, see what happens, and if nothing happens, naming Beast Within. Then going to combat. You don't want to lock a creature into that Beast token. Well, it doesn't happen.
Didn't happen, so Jody goes to 9. I do agree, though. I think that would be the safer play. And here's another Meddling Mage from Jim. I'm wondering if he'll just name Living End again.
Totally reasonable.
Though it would be fun to lock out all the cards.
The nightmare scenario is Jody just plays a land, exiles Simian Spirit Guide, casts Archfiend Ifnir, and this has multiple Street Wraiths.
Right.
This is theoretically possible.
Is that more or less likely than him just, if you don't name Beast Within here, if him Beast Withining your Meddling Mage, and then just Living Ending you?
This is post-combat. I think you would have seen a Beast Within. That would both gain Jody some life and get that Meddling Mage off the table. A little interested in Jody responding here.
Yeah, if I have the Beast Within, We'll see. He does have it. Shoots it off at Meddling Mage. That means Jim is just probably going to name Living End again.
Presumably.
So we actually did have the Beast Within. And that's the thing you said, the attack being a check on Beast Within. Jody Keith, one of his play styles is he's really good at kind of playing your opponent, misdirection, representation. So Jody might take a bunch of extra damage to try to get his opponent to punt into Beast Within. But he does have the thing you're mentioning, Simian Spirit Guide. Now, it wasn't Archfiend of Ifnir.
It was close.
It was close.
If there were an Archfiend and another Street Wraith, this could have been disaster for Jim.
But now, Jim has 4th Land. Yes, Thaw's Lieutenant and Phantasmal Image.
Copy that Mantis Rider.
How about Image Mantis Rider, Mantis Rider? That'll do it as well. Jim Davis takes game 1.
Yeah, Jim presented what he needed. He had Meddling Mage, and he had enough pressure.
Those Meddling Mage is going to prove to be pretty good here in this matchup. But after sideboard, Jody does have a pretty key Dead Gone.
Right. 4 copies of Dead Gone on the sideboard, and then a bunch of stuff that's really no good. Fulminator Mage and Gachu Relay Line, Slaughter Games. Nothing that really matters against humans.
Yeah, just the cheap removal spell. 1 damage, deal 2. Pretty good against humans, pretty good against Meddling Mage.
Right.
To slow him down. On Jim's side, we have Sin Collectors, 3 of them. We have Reclamation Sage, Staticaster, Gut Shot. We actually have Damping Sphere. Could work here. Auriok Champion, the last... Is that the 4th Reflector Mage and the 4th Militia Bugler?
It's definitely the 4th. Yep, 4th of both of those. The thing about Damping Sphere is you can tax Living End for 1 because they cast Demonic Dread for 3 mana. Cascade into the spell. They have to pay 1 more for the Living End.
But
Thalia is good because it taxes both spells.
Right.
It stops you from playing them, whereas as long as Jody's mana is developing, getting to 4 and casting Living End, not a big deal. Damping Sphere also not a creature. Jim does have to have pressure. So I don't really think Damping Sphere is good enough. Sin Collector might be fine. Vialing that in, that could be a factor in a game. Though it is pretty slow.
Yeah. With Reflector Mage and Bugler style effects in this matchup, the ability to interact with creatures or to get additional value off 3 drops, is Jim interested in any of this?
Something like Hierarch into turn 2 Bugler to find a disruptive piece, be it Thalia or Meddling Mage, could be fast enough. I think his Reflector Mages are the weakest card in the matchup, and I kind of like the idea of swapping the Reflector Mages for those Sin Collectors, just because they both cost 3 and the Sin Collector might matter.
Yeah, that makes sense. See which way Jim goes. Star City Games Game Night is your chance to win pins and tokens exclusive to Star City Games. You can win them at your local stores for playing their weekday events. In July, you have just a few days left to win the Playing with Fire Dragon token. You see that Ryan and I both have on our jackets here today. Next month, we will be switching over to the Order of the First Cheese, the 2/2 Knight Ally token here. Get that one both for the Cat pin and for your Gideon tokens. And you can still sign up in time for Garden Tendencies. That's the September promo. It's going to be, see this panda here, also the Westvale Abbey token.
Spooky Panda. I believe that was the working title. Somebody somehow came up with a better name than Spooky Panda. I personally would have voted for Spooky Panda, though Garden Tendencies is a fine name.
Jody Keith on Living End. He's actually not the only Living End player here in Day 2. Another player on the deck. He's the only one in contention for top 8 at this point.
I don't know that I've ever seen it be a significant presence in the metagame, though it's a deck that's been around for a long time. It certainly does powerful things.
Yeah, it's been around for quite a while, really. Ever since Alara block, once you start to be able to cascade into these.
Yeah, that's a pretty busted mechanic.
Yeah. Now, Living End got a big upgrade with Amonkhet. Got some new cycling cards. Archfiend of Ifnir, Desert Ceradon, Horror of the Broken Lands. Got to get away from its 2-mana cyclers.
Yep. Yeah, cycling for 1 is a big deal. Rules update for split cards costing the sum total of both halves. Pretty big deal, as you see those 4 dead Gons in Jody's sideboard. Really important in a matchup like this.
Yeah, I was going to say it's interesting because that rules update mattered as much as it did for a deck like this.
It's really funny because that rules update was to intentionally make some interactions worse. The idea was now you can't Brain in a Jar, Beck Call, and cast both halves.
Or you can't cascade into Boom Bust anymore.
Yeah. So they're turning off interactions like that. Meanwhile, it made the interaction with Cascade So you can put more cards like this into decks that are trying to cascade into low mana spells. Made these cards a lot. It actually didn't have any impact on some of the rules. They were always bad with Dark Confidant, for example.
Right, Dark Confidant always made you take the full damage.
That was a thing with hit run.
Yeah. It changed how counterbalance works with them.
Yes. Yeah, Wear Tear was pretty obnoxious counterbalance, but also Top was legal when that was a big part of the format.
Yeah, it was a 1 and a 2 for counterbalance.
Right.
Now it is just a 3.
You used to see Wear Tear come in matchups where it just wasn't at all good to cast.
I just realized that's so gross.
Because it just gets to float.
Jim, I'm going to take a mulligan here as Jody keeps.
Makes sense. Jim definitely wants to mulligan pretty aggressively in the matchup. The clock has to be absurdly fast to not care about having a prison element. Basically, you just need Meddling Mage and Thalia. There's an argument for Freebooter being fine. Once you go down to 6 and 5 cards, it becomes more attractive to stop when you hit one of those. Living End does have a fail rate. Something that's kind of amusing about the deck is your opening hand sometimes is a composition of lands and 6 mana creatures that cycle. And you rely on that cycling creature to draw you into either more cycling creatures or your Cascade spell, but you don't really know what's going to happen.
Yeah, it's interesting. So as far as consistency, the deck is very consistent because it has so many cyclers. But the problem is that you don't. There's uncertainty in it. Like the hand you mentioned, it's not that the deck's inconsistent. It's that you just don't know when you're keeping it.
Right. I'm going to keep this hand every time, and some of the games I'm going to do nothing of consequence.
Jim, having kept on 6, starts off on an Aether Vial. Do you think there's a chance we see get Ingot Chewered here?
I'm not sold on boarding an Ingot Chewer. It's fine.
It's got a right card. It's either a Chewer or a Desert Ceradon here.
I suppose Aether Vial's a pretty significant part of Jim's deck, and when you fight with Deadgon over Meddling Mage, not having a Vial available to make another Meddling Mage in response is a pretty big win for Jody.
Yeah, and it looks like at least some of them have come in out of the sideboard. He shoots down that Vial. And that's really going to slow down Jim. Fortunately he kept a 2-lander. He didn't just keep a 1-land hand. And can still make this Thalia.
Yeah, Thalia, pretty big deal. It's one of those creatures that really slows down Living End. Got to pay 4 for the Cascade spell, 1 more for the Living End itself.
Yeah, Jody does have a copy of Deadgon in his hand, so he just makes land 3. However, he wants to not get colded by Meddling Mage, so he may not use it on this Thalia.
The other thing about Thalia is it's legendary. So taking 2 points, pretty low cost. Just hit this at the end step. Jim does have another copy of Thalia in hand.
Yeah, Jim's having now a Freebooter, a second Thalia, and then 3 Lieutenants. He'll lead on Kitesail Freebooter.
And that Vial being destroyed, that's pretty taxing for a hand like this. You would much prefer to be able to commit 2 2-mana creatures here.
Looks like with that Freebooter on the stack, Jody might be going for this Deadgon.
There's not a lot of hands where you don't want to do that.
Well, I suppose one thing he could have done was let it resolve if he had 2 Cascade cards and then just sweep up the board on the untap, get his Deadgon back. But his graveyard's not that great. It's 7 power. But that can actually be overcome. We get to look at Jody's hand. Beast Within, Archfiend of Ifnir, Land 4, and Demonic Dread.
If you leave the Demonic Dread, then Jody could bring back Chewer Horror to your Thalia. But you'd more likely to cycle that Archfiend of Ifnir.
Right. With Jim's start being as it is, you're somewhat just worried that Jody will play land 4, play land 5, play Archfiend. I don't know that Jim's racing that yet.
He'll have a little bit of time to try to produce some Meddling Mage, but you're right, the Archfiend is a pretty big deal. Jim is not attacking for very much damage. Yeah, Jody reaping the rewards of destroying that Aether Vial for sure.
So Jim decides the best thing to do is to keep Jody off that Living End Cascade. He takes Demonic Dread.
Beast Within is an instant, so Jody has the option available to him to destroy that Freebooter at Jim's end step and then go for Demonic Dread. There needs to be another creature, but the Beast Within provides that.
How do you feel about upkeep destroying Jim's land? Too aggressive or reasonable?
A little aggressive for my taste.
Jody drew Simian Spirit Guide, meaning he could just make Archfiend of Ifnir this turn.
I don't mind that.
And that's what he's going to do. Last card in hand's Beast Within. He makes the rare here.
Jim likely to be lower, completely off of Reflector Mage in the matchup, so this is looking pretty good.
Here is Cavern of Souls. Jim's hand is Athalia and 3 Lieutenants. All cards that if Jody has one card that cycles will get tagged by this Archfiend of Ifnir.
Yeah. The hand currently Beast Within, though the deck is pretty full of creatures that cycle.
And to be fair, Jim knows that the hand is just Beast Within right now.
Right. This was a pretty good rare in Amonkhet Limited. Kind of feels like a limited game right now.
I played the regional Amonkhet Limited PTQ, and this card brought me to the top 8. Problem was I didn't open one in the top 8.
Yeah, you should have drafted one. Yeah.
And once it left my deck, I stopped winning. But the Swiss rounds were nice. This guy was excellent.
Just an uncommon, like 5-mana, 5/4 flyer is probably pretty good.
That's with cycling?
And then, yeah, and then this card just has upside.
Oh, yeah, and then it has this ability that's just incredible.
Yeah.
Thalia's Lieutenant, the play from Jim, making a 2/3 blocker.
Yeah, so he's trying to assemble a bunch of the Lieutenants, hoping that Jody does not draw a Cycler this turn.
Yeah,
well, so much for that.
Wraith.
So much for that.
Yeah, goes and draws, so counter back off that freebooter. And Jody will attack for 5.
And the Archfiend, in addition to just being a walking Plague Wind, just closes the game.
Is a 5-power flyer.
Is a 5-power flyer.
Yeah, team down to 13. Looks like he's got Beast Within. They may have picked up another Demonic Dread. I don't think he cares right now. Archfiend seems like it's doing its job
Yeah.
just fine.
This graveyard got a little bit better by adding that Street Wraith, and Jim's is not very good, but not a really compelling reason to change things.
Yeah, if he casts the Demonic Dread, he probably wins that game too, but why mess with a good thing?
Right.
You know, if Jim maybe Reflector Mages the Archfiend, yeah, then he can cycle it and go and sweep the board.
Right.
Go back over to Davis. Jim picks up Champion of the Parish. That'll allow him to cast 2 creatures this turn. Champion of the Parish and Thalia's Lieutenant. See if Jody's going to respond. He cannot. So that Champion's going to get out of range of the cycling. So it's up to a 3/3. Kite Sail to a 2/3. Kite Sail will swing in for 2 to put Jody to 15.
Then Jody really cares. He can still just Living End this all away.
Right. I think he's Beast Within, it looks like.
Oh, I love this. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Destroys his Archfiend. Now he's got a really stock graveyard.
I think we're going to cast that Demonic Dread.
I imagine.
And drew Desert Ceradon, so now he can cycle as well once he gets that Archfiend back. Here is Living End. This will clean up things nicely. Cycles Desert Ceradon with Living End on the stack. And all of Jim's creatures are put into the graveyard.
Jody gets Demonic Dread back.
Yep.
So if anything goes horribly wrong, which I can't imagine anything changing this battlefield.
Jim did get 2 creatures off the Living End. But,
that's true. That 1/1 and that 3/2.
Okay.
Pretty powerful stuff. Jim doesn't even have a swamp, so he can block that Street Wraith.
Yeah, Jody gets back another Demonic Dread from the freebooter. That's not going to be needed here, though.
Jim has no good attacks, no good blocks, and no good cards in his hand.
Yeah, drew Sin Collector for the turn.
Kind of the nature of the matchup, really. The games are never going to look particularly close.
Sin Collector takes that Demonic Dread, pumps the Thalia's Lieutenant, but now Jody has a huge attack.
Might even cycle something first, get rid of these blockers. Or at least the Sin Collector first, and if there's 2 things to cycle, then the whole team. Drew a land, though.
And he'll swing everything. You see Jim lining up blocks. Desert Ceradon is a 6, so Sin Collector will jump in front of that. Looks at the remaining ones. That's 3, 8, 12, 15 more damage, so he's got to block more of it, and he starts doing the math and says, this is stupid.
Yeah. Why am I doing this?
And we'll be going to a third game.
I could be doing anything else with my time right now. Let's go to game 3. And Jim's going to be on the play. Once again, he'll be looking to get Meddling Mage online early, Thalia, potentially Kitesail Freebooter. And Jody is going to try to do exactly what he did there. Dead Gone to keep off the creatures he cares about, get a couple creatures in the graveyard, and then Living End for a lot more effect than what Jim does. Get a bunch of 6/6s and 5/4 flyers. A big part of Jody's game plan there was you saw him cast Archfiend of Ifnir, though that's a lot tougher to do when he's on the draw.
Right. Yeah, Archfiend of Ifnir, it's been, it's been a while since we actually gotten to cover Living End since the Amonkhet update to the deck. It's been really impressive because a lot of times when what Living End has been just these dumb vanilla creatures, sometimes even with drawbacks, right, with Carabid, that are okay, but the point is you're living ending them. Archfiend of Ifnir actually has given the deck the ability to answer a lot of boards it couldn't previously. This card, despite not really being at a rate where it would see play outside of Living End, has some really relevant text once it's in play.
Yeah, all the other things are upgrades in a way where it maybe in 5% of the games, if that, having a 6-power creature come in is better than a 4 or a 3-power creature. But that's pretty minor.
Right.
Having a spell that you can cast that can have a dramatic impact on the battlefield is a pretty big difference maker.
Yeah, there's things, we saw a game yesterday where Jody Keith was playing against a bridge from below, and there was an army of zombies. And we thought, hey, Archfiend of Ifnir can actually just answer this.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll have a third game here. Jim will be back on the play. So Star City Games, if you want to, our IQs, another way to play here on the SCG Tour is the Star City Games Invitational Qualifiers. Stores around the country hold these ones. $1,000 in prizes to the top 8, and they can get you to our SCG Con Invitational main event, the next one coming up in December. So right now, you get points for the tour, can earn buys at these events as well. You can get exclusive playmats, and top 8 pins. So on top of that, you can find an IQ near you at starcitygames.com/IQ, and on top of that, you can get some pretty excellent tokens. I'm pretty big on the one on the right. You can also get Patrick Sullivan Dragon tokens. Those will be given away through the fall.
I actually qualified for my first invitational through an invitational qualifier. This is back when invitationals were standard and legacy. And when I qualified, Mental Misstep was legal in legacy. And when I played the invitational, that was no longer true.
You played 2 very different formats.
Yes. I didn't qualify playing legacy. So I had to figure out legacy. I started playing matches with Mental Misstep. And then about a month or a couple weeks into that, I had to change what I was doing.
That was a wild, what was it, about 3 months that it was around?
Yeah, it wasn't too long.
Yeah.
Nobody cared very much for that.
So we kind of saw 2 different aspects of Jim's deck. Game 1, he has long on Disruption. Game 2, he had a lot of attacking power, and it really showed the difference. The Disruptive hand was very good. The hand of all Thalia's Lieutenants didn't play well at all.
Right. And Jim did end up mulliganing to that hand, and it's tough to go to 5 and expect to have everything that you need, especially in these tie-board games where Jody has access to Dead Gone. Only having one piece of the prison elements, be it Thalia or Meddling Mage, is often not going to be good enough.
So Jim's turn 1 Aether Vial this game looks like it's going to stick around, as Jody did not Ingot Chewer it. And now Jim, a pretty disruptive hand again. Here's Kitesail Freebooter. Jody has a Dead Gone. And actually Jim has a Meddling Mage in hand as well, and Sin Collector. So this is the strategy we were looking for. Let's take a look at Jody's hand. We have Dead Gone. We have Monstrous Carabid, Street Wraith, Demonic Dread, Desert Ceradon.
And I believe the Archfiend of Ifnir promo.
Okay. Yeah.
This was back when buy a box promos were bad. This card's worth about 37 cents.
It's not Nexus of Fate?
No. It's not even Thunder whatever and Sun thingy. Whatever that Boros thing is.
I like that Thunder and Sun card.
Thunder Song and Fireman. I
think it's a firefighter, yeah.
It costs 6. I know that.
Jody actually lets Dead Gone get freebooted and chooses to cycle Ceradon instead.
And taking this Dead Gone that covers Jim's Meddling Mage down the line.
Uses Street Wraith to cycle. Now, because Jody is on the draw here, Meddling Mage actually still can hit this Living End before Jody gets a chance to get up to that Demonic Dread mana.
The one thing that can change this would be Simian Spirit Guide.
Right. This looks like that's not going to be there. 2 Street Wraith cycle. Jody will play Black Cliffs and pass.
And if the guy was available, this is enough of a graveyard, enough of a reason to just go for Living End on the second turn of the game.
Well, with this Vial, Jim gets both Meddling Mage and Sin Collector as a possibility here.
Yeah. You can even wait until a Cascade spell's being cast, then Vial and Meddling Mage and name Living End.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's pretty brutal.
That's really good. Here's Sin Collector from Jim. I'd forgotten about that. That is... So walk me through the rules on that. When he Cascade, do you have to do it with the Cascade spell on the stack then?
With the Cascade trigger on the stack, right.
Okay.
Once you let that resolve, you see the spell, then Jody just has priority with the question, yes or no, cast this spell.
Okay. And we see Jody's hand after Sin Collector is just Ceradon, Carabid, Archfiend, Horror of the Broken Lands. So just a bunch of cycling things. Right now, he doesn't have another Demonic Dread or Violent Outburst. He doesn't have a lot of looks at one.
And he's a little off mana-wise in terms of casting that Archfiend, which was important in that second game.
Right. I guess Jim has the luxury. He doesn't have to make Meddling Mage here. He could hold it, and if he never sees a Cascade spell, then on turn 4, Meddling Mage and Archfiend, something like that.
Right.
It would slow down his clock, so he may not go for that.
There is a Mantis Rider as the other spell in hand, so he'll be able to turn up the heat in a pretty big way. The way the math shakes out, he's attacking for 3 right now. Mantis Rider will make it 6. That's still a 3-turn clock. Adding Meddling Mage makes it 8, that's a difference maker. That's a 2-turn clock.
Jody says go, and Jim's going to tap Aether Vial. This would be the spot, I would think, where Jody would have, if he had Violent Outburst, he would have done it in response to this.
Right.
So now that the Mage is in play, I have to think Jim names Living End.
That would be my assumption.
This is a more aggressive line by Jim. It's the most damage. It is also the most vulnerable. Now, if Jody has a Dead Gone, a Beast Within, he will get an opportunity to remove the Meddling Mage.
Mm-hmm. He has to draw that and then the Cascade spell. Jim was aware of the hand going into Jody's turn.
Name's Living End.
Minus the cycle there.
Jody's going to keep cycling, it looks like. I liked your idea of waiting until the Cascade trigger to go ahead and go for anything.
Yeah, so ultimately this changes the math on the clock, but because Jody got to untap and have a fresh draw step, activating the Vial gave him a window for the Violent Outburst. So I think if you're going to Mage here, which makes sense because of combat, you wanted to do it before Jody untapped.
Sure. Now Jody's cycling again, looking for maybe a Dead Gone, something he can do. Hasn't found one yet. And he'll just pass. Jim now gets to untap. And we'll send the Vial. Now Jim has to think, right? He has the mana already to cast Mantis Rider, so he's keeping it on a number. He's anticipating what his draw might be here. Nothing in hand cares.
Right. The attack is currently 5. Mantis Rider makes it 8. Adding another Mantis Rider doesn't really matter too much, but maybe you draw a Sin Collector.
Sure.
Being able to do that as well could be the thing.
Jim's going to keep it on 2.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. Draws Aether Vial.
Right. He has to represent the Vial as well, which is going to give Jody some pause.
The worry on Jim's side is that if Jody has Dead Gone into a Cascade spell, then he can win.
Right.
Swing for 8 from Jim. Jody drops to 7. He'll have 1 turn left to clean up this board. He'll have to do it through a Meddling Mage.
Last time we got a look at Jody's hand, it was just a bunch of cycling creatures. Some of them have been cycled at this point, though unclear what he's picked up.
He has a Demonic Dread in hand. He has not picked, so he has a Horror of the Broken Lands here. If he can pick up a Dead Gone, he should be fine.
Right. Not enough mana to leverage a Beast Within at this point, though.
Nope, and his first cycle doesn't work. Does the draw step find it? It does not. 2 more lands. And We can't cast Demonic Dread. Well, we can cast it, but we won't cascade into anything relevant.
Looks like he's drawn a living end, but
Right, so
still a couple left in the deck.
I guess the question is, can that last card in his hand keep him alive for a turn? I guess if he cycles into Beast Within, he might be able to survive an attack.
Yeah, turning one of these attackers off for a turn, go back to his turn. It would have to be the Meddling Mage, so then you're facing down 6, and he's at 7 as long as he doesn't have a fetch land, but he draws nothing. And Jim Davis, 13-1, he'll be in the top 8.
Yeah, not just in the top 8, he'll be there as likely the 2 seed.
Right. Yeah, Jeff Hoagland's still looking to be our